At exactly 2:17 a.m., the Persian Gulf looked completely normal. Oil tankers were moving slowly, and Kharg Island, Iran's most important oil export hub, was running as usual. Nothing seemed wrong. But what no one could see was something moving silently in the sky, hundreds of miles away. No radar warning, no signal, just an invisible threat getting closer every second. Its mission was simple: shut down Iran's oil lifeline without starting a full-scale war. This wasn't a real attack. It was a highly classified U.S. war simulation. But when the results came in, even top military officials were shocked. Because this simulation raised a serious question. If this attack was real, could Iran actually defend its most critical oil hub? And if the answer is no, then how safe is the global oil supply?
The operation started long before any aircraft entered the region. Weeks earlier, U.S. satellites were already watching Kharg Island closely, tracking radar patterns, air defenses, and even the daily movement of workers and ships. Every detail mattered. At the same time, cyber units were quietly testing Iran's digital systems, looking for weak points, not to attack yet, but to understand how fast Iran could respond. Then came the first phase of the simulation: electronic warfare. In this stage, the goal was not to destroy anything, but to confuse. Signals were jammed, communications were disrupted, and radar screens were filled with false targets. To Iranian defenses, it looked like multiple threats were coming from different directions at once. But here's the twist: none of them were real. This was just the setup. Because while Iran's defenses were focused on the wrong targets, the real strike package was already moving into position, completely undetected. While Iran's defenses were busy chasing false targets, the real strike force was already inside the danger zone. Flying low and fast, stealth aircraft moved across the Gulf, staying just below radar coverage. Every second was calculated. Every move was silent. These aircraft were not just designed to avoid detection, they were designed to control the battlefield without being seen. Alongside them, support systems tracked every radar signal, every communication, and every possible response from Iranian forces. Timing was everything. If even one aircraft was detected too early, the entire mission could fail. In the simulation, there was a critical window, just a few minutes, where Iran's defenses would be at their weakest. That was the moment the strike had to happen. Not before, not after. Because once that window closed, Iran's air defenses would reset, lock on, and respond with full force. And if that happened, this mission could quickly turn into a disaster.
Then the window opened. For just a few minutes, everything aligned perfectly. Iranian radar systems were still confused, communication lines were unstable, and defenses were focused in the wrong direction. This was the moment the entire operation depended on. The strike aircraft didn't hesitate. Within seconds, precision-guided weapons were released, not randomly, but with exact targets already locked in. Oil storage tanks, loading terminals, and key control facilities were all marked as high-value targets. The goal was not total destruction, but maximum disruption. In the simulation, even a small number of accurate hits was enough to shut down a large part of Kharg Island's operations. Fire spread quickly, systems failed, and export activity dropped almost instantly. And the most shocking part? By the time Iranian defenses realized what was actually happening, the strike was already over.
Within minutes of the strike, the situation on Kharg Island changed completely. What was once a normal night turned into chaos. Emergency systems activated, alarms spread across the facility, and crews rushed to control the damage. In the simulation, even limited strikes caused major disruption. Oil loading stopped almost instantly. Tankers waiting offshore had to pull back, unsure of what would happen next. At the same time, Iranian defense units finally understood the real threat. But by then, it was too late. The aircraft responsible for the strike were already leaving the area, still undetected. And this is where the real impact became clear. The goal was never to destroy everything, it was to interrupt the flow of oil. Because even a short disruption at Kharg Island could affect global supply, increase oil prices, and create panic in international markets. And that's exactly what this simulation revealed. But the simulation didn't stop at the strike. It went one step further, asking what happens next. As soon as the disruption began, global markets reacted. Oil prices started rising within hours, shipping routes in the Persian Gulf became uncertain, and insurance costs for tankers increased sharply. Even countries far from the region began to feel the pressure. Inside Iran, military forces moved into high alert. Air defenses were fully activated, naval units were deployed, and the risk of retaliation became very real. This is where the situation became dangerous, because even though the strike was limited, the response might not be. One wrong move could turn a controlled operation into a much larger conflict. A single retaliation could trigger another strike, and then another. And suddenly, what started as a precise, calculated mission could grow into something far bigger than anyone planned.
But here's the part that surprised analysts the most. In the simulation, the strike itself was successful, but holding the advantage was much harder. After the initial attack, Iran quickly adapted. Backup systems were activated, alternative export routes were considered, and defenses became far more aggressive. Within hours, the element of surprise was gone. This revealed a critical truth. Winning the first strike is one thing, but controlling what happens after is something completely different. Because once the attack is exposed, the opponent is no longer confused. They are alert, reactive, and ready to escalate. And that changes everything. The simulation showed that while the U.S. could temporarily disrupt Iran's oil flow, maintaining that disruption without triggering a wider conflict would be extremely difficult. Which raises a deeper question. Was this kind of operation really a solution, or just the beginning of a much bigger problem?
In the end, this simulation was not just about one strike on one island. It was a warning. A warning about how fragile the global energy system really is, and how quickly things can spiral out of control. Because Kharg Island is not just another location, it is a critical point that connects regional conflict to the entire world economy. The simulation showed that a single well-timed operation could disrupt millions of barrels of oil per day. But it also revealed something even more dangerous. There is no clean ending, no perfect victory. Every action leads to a reaction, and once that chain begins, it becomes almost impossible to stop. So the real question is not whether such a strike can happen. The real question is, if it ever does, who will be able to control what comes next?